Okay, good morning everybody. This is Merlin Peter at Alcorobi. This is my project name, and it's part of a larger umbrella organisation called soteriologicgarden.com. As you can see, I'm in a chicken pen and there's a connection here, but the one that's making all the noise is a gander over there. Shh, I'm talking. I'm here for a particular reason. I'm planting up a hedge of Malus sylvestris, which I've purchased from Britain, and bearing in mind they're on their own roots, and plants that you bury in their own roots tend to have greater survival instincts. A lot of fruit trees are grafted, and there's a very good reason for that, but there's a very good organisation and movement for own root stocks. Trees are much larger, they produce fruit much later in their lives, but they are generally more hardy, especially if you get local varieties. Now these Malus sylvestris, which is a wild apple, or crab apple as we call them in England, are going to struggle to a certain extent here in this Catalonian climate. The land is very stony, it's certainly free draining, but it's just not deep enough really for some of those roots to get into. There's certainly going to be a big difference between temperate climates and a Mediterranean one in terms of soil quality, humidity, rainfall, that type of thing. But bear in mind also that the Malus genus of apple originated from somewhere in Siberia and was brought over by the Romans and the Greeks. Anyhow, I'm going to go through a process of planting up this hedge, and I'm deciding which holes I'm going to use depending on how deep I can go with the spade. There's a very good reason to plant Malus here. One, it's going to be 3-4 apples for the chickens to be able to enjoy themselves, and maybe the odd couple of sheep that I'm going to allow to roam around the land to self-graze. And secondly, it's very good for pollination and pollinating other varieties in the apple and pear family, but also it's a good source of bee nectar. It's a very good plant for bee food. Not all fruit trees are like that, but because this is a natural variety grown off its own roots, I'm hoping it's going to establish itself and really elongate the pollination, or not pollination, the honey season for my bee collection, which is expanding slowly. And today I've just received a phone call to say that the man with a lot of second-hand beehives is in the local cooperative. He's selling up because he's getting too old to be able to maintain them. So what I'm going to do in this video is, you can see how everything's connected up in my life here, all my journeys and everything else. I'm going to show you how to plant using a mixture of, here we have it, a mixture of well composted rabbit manure, which I get at €5 a trailer load, mixed in with crushed charcoal, which I make myself. And the crushed charcoal, which is quite inert, actually prevents various insects from trying to penetrate the area, which is why they've anciently used to use them in post holes. And secondly, they actually store nutrients. So any nutrients which are escaping within the local vicinity can get trapped within crushed charcoal, and then it becomes available for plant roots. So I use that combination, and I'm going to actually put this at the base of each planting hole. On top of that, I've got this stuff called root grow. Now anyone who's a permaculturist, or anyone who's a gardener, must know what this is. Root grow is just a brand name for mycorrhizal fungi. Now it's a fungus that naturally resides in the soil, undisturbed soils, and it can take up to 6-7 years for that mycorrhizal fungi to establish itself in natural circumstances. If you keep disturbing soil for one reason or another, then it kills the fungi. And the reason being is because it forms a symbiotic relationship with perennial root systems. And this symbiosis actually exchanges food. So it takes food from the surrounding environment and makes it available to the plant's roots. And that allows the tree or the shrub or bush or whatever to thrive. It can take 6 or 7 years, as I say, but with such a little handful of this to get it going, mixed in with the charcoal and mixed in also with the well composted rabbit manure, it should really give them a head start and allow them to start pushing those roots out as fast as possible in this very difficult soil. All right, so let me just go through a process of how I do it. So I've pre-dug these holes and tested, really, prospecting if you can call it that, to see how deep I can go. And I choose the plant roots that suit the hole, really. You don't want to put leggy ones in short holes. One, because they're dependent on a certain level of moisture and humidity to keep them going, and in a short hole, if there's too much root system, they're probably going to be very thirsty. So already I'm hitting stone, so I'm trying to break it up a little bit. And this is a calcareous stone. It's part of the landscape here in Catalonia. Conglomerate rock, and it's basically limestone. There's loads of it around, so it's a very sweet soil. So let's put in 2 handfuls of my mixture of well composted rabbit manure, not fresh rabbit manure, whatever you do. I mean, this stuff has been lying around for years on the farm, and any traces of antibiotics and stuff like that I'm hoping have disappeared, but eventually I will create all my own manure on the farm. 2 handfuls of that, a little teaspoon or 2 of mycorrhizal fungi. Let's give you a little close up. Here comes a chicken to say hello. It's one of the chickens I bought, actually. Those hens, they remember me, you know. Yeah. So I don't know if you can actually see that. Oh, there we are. And just a sprinkling. There we are. Not too much, otherwise you use it all up. A little. Keep them in a bag because as soon as those root systems dry, the fibrous hairs, they die pretty quickly. So you keep them moist all the time, even when you're sending it over in the post, and even if they're cold, cold hardwood cuttings as these were. Now I've got a particular deep hole there, so let's pick one that's not going to struggle and it's got a good root system on it. There we are. Malus sylvestris, yeah? Crabapple. And you can make obviously marmalades and jams out of it, and maybe a drink if you want to. Crabapple is high in tannin, which is why if you want to make a good cider, you need that bitter quality, which you get from tannin. Unless you've got a cider apple that has all the right qualities, you have to mix your apples up beforehand. So you want a crab apple, you want a sour apple, and you want a sweet apple, and that gives you the acidity, the sweetness, the sugar, and the tannin, the bitterness. So they call it a bittersweet apple if you want to make a good cider. So just to be generous with this, why not? And then backfill. Trying not to get too many stones in there, but you can't help it in this climate. This is wild asparagus. Eh? We got it now growing. People come foraging for this from Barcelona, as far as Barcelona, different cities, because it grows so freely here in the countryside. You eat the chips, but they can get really fat and juicy. Look at that, wild asparagus. That's got quite a bitterness to it, but I do like bitter food, I have to admit. my favourite drink, fruit drink, is probably pomelo. What's pomelo, you're asking me? What is it in English? Grapefruit. I just had a long conversation in Spanish, so my English starts to disappear. Here we go. So a nice little divot so that water can collect, and just smashing away at the edges so that any grasses and stuff like that can't invade, because obviously they do as soon as you start watering. And later on I'll probably mulch all of these. So just to finish on that, a little top dressing. And ideally give it a water straight away. You can see, I can see that it's already beginning to bud. So they survived the journey in the post. And there we go. And be generous, you know, with the water. Now this humidity at this time of the month, and that means you get what we call condensation or dew in the morning, and in Spanish it's called rocío. It's so important as a natural source of water for huge amounts of plants that we wake up in the morning and everything's absolutely soaking wet. Metal surfaces, plastic surfaces, stones, straw, everything is actually saturated to a certain degree, and without that I could never have any sort of a success here. You know, because the rain that was promised over the last few weeks just didn't come. It sort of passed away over the mountains somewhere. So now I've done that, I'm going to continue doing my hedge, and I'm going to pick up the phone and just give you a little tour of some of the other things which I've been doing on my permaculture farm. Now, I don't know much about chickens yet, hens. It's my dad's project, and I like to see him participate to a certain degree. So we salvaged these hens and that gander over there from the neighbours when they sold up. But it's an opportunity, it's a protected zone here, so it's an opportunity to actually plant stuff. And chickens, they scratch and they damage, I know that for a fact, but they don't peck or eat the bottom of trees to the extent that they would kill them. They wouldn't, they cause much less damage than, say, something like a goat, and probably even less damage than a sheep would in a grazing field. But let me pick up this and give you a little tour of what my dad's been up to. I found this hat as well, would you believe it? Washed up on the beach, and it's only because I go swimming in the winter that I get all these gifts for free. Let's have a look, see what we got. Want to say hello to Noisy bastard? Look at him. Yeah, come on. You say hello, go on then. Whoops, look, oh, he's getting frisky. Oh yes, sir. Hey. There's a chicken laying in there or two. So what an introduction. What an introduction that was to. And he's never done that to me before, but he's certainly livened my fucking tail. And I feed him like every other day with scraps from the food tunnel. Okay, so what we'll have here, look at this. This is jujube. There's another name for it. I think they call it jinjo, not jinko, jinjo. And it's a fruit that you can buy at the market. There's my dog, the noble Jerry. Oh, it's all of them coming now. Say hello. So jujube, it's got a spine on it, but very, very drought resistant. I've just stuck him in the ground, and I'm hoping to extend, as I say, the hedge along this side to provide any food for whatever animals I'm going to keep here. Oh look, he's come up to say hello again. Yeah. All right. Doesn't like the phone. It obviously isn't photogenic. So jujube produces a small, slow-growing tree. You go down the garden centre and it will cost you something like €10 to buy that. I went to a place and an abandoned plot and found maybe hundreds of them growing like weeds, and I just dug them up and stuck them in the ground. And obviously, even if you damage the root systems on them, they have enough root systems to actually recuperate, because these plants are probably the most drought resistant. They're more drought resistant than olive. They're more drought resistant than carobs. But anything that's more drought resistant than an almond tree, which doesn't need watering at all either, is a find, and it's especially if it can produce fruit. So obviously more pollination for bees and that type of thing. But I'm looking at windfall, so I'm creating another hedge along here. I only dug up 8. I don't need more than that. And they look dead at sometimes, these plants, because they produce leaves so late in the year. And on the other side, I've got my wind hedge, and this is also going to provide a shade, because the sun is over there, as you can see, going around towards the south. And it just gets incredibly dry and hot in this climate. So these cypress trees, again, once established after the first year, second year, don't require watering. And they're all planted more or less at the same time, but they're all different sizes, and that's must be genetic variation within each tree. And there I have a tangerine, sorry, a mandarin. I don't know if you noticed that. Should I show you again? It's a mandarin that produced for me last year a few mandarins. And here we have the tombstone of Belinda, one of her dogs, and I've planted on her tombstone a grapefruit. So that also produced, and if you can see it, that also produced a huge grapefruit, because it was already grown when I bought it at the time at the nursery. And then again, a row of jujubes. I can't figure out the Latin name on that one. It's Diospirus or something like that. And the thing to bear in mind is that some of these, like olive trees here, are quite small, and the capacity of them is to actually grow much larger. And when you look at this carob tree over here, you see that? Now that's what, I don't know, 70 years old, 80 years old maybe. Give that another 30-40 years and I should still be living. That tree could be another 20 feet tall, and I do allow them to grow tall, the carobs, because they're an easy crop to manage. And again, a few more jujubes here, which will eventually be living in the shade of the carob. So to finish the video, then let's just show you what I've done so far. And I need to go and water these and probably get down into town now. Going to have a row of crab apples, and I've allowed potential growth of the olive tree to be able to overhang here, and I don't want really crab apples growing underneath olive trees, but we'll see how we go. Okay then, so from sociologicgarden.com, come pay us a visit, learn some permaculture. Now's the productive time, so if you haven't booked it, then you're probably missing out for the rest of the year, and I'm well due for a holiday.